For more than 300 years, the Galactic Empire ruled nearly half the known galaxy. Its banners floated above thousands of worlds. Its fleets darkened the skies of rebellious systems. Entire civilizations bowed the moment Imperial warships appeared in orbit. Across the core worlds, people believed one thing with absolute certainty: the Empire could never be challenged. And among all the species inside Imperial territory, none were mocked more than humanity. Humans were considered weak, primitive, emotional, dangerously independent. The Empire tolerated them only because Earth occupied a useful trade corridor near the outer spiral sectors. Human merchants carried supplies through unstable regions where most alien navigators refused to travel. They were useful workers, useful pilots, but never respected. Inside the shining halls of the Imperial Senate, human ambassadors were ignored during debates. Human officers were denied command positions in mixed fleets. Imperial nobles openly joked that humanity's greatest achievement was surviving long enough to become taxpayers. And over time, humanity stopped arguing. They withdrew from imperial politics. They abandoned Senate negotiations. They reduced diplomatic contact year after year. Eventually, most of the galaxy forgot humans even existed, which was exactly what humanity wanted. Because while the Empire celebrated itself, Earth was preparing. Far beyond the core worlds, hidden inside dark systems unmarked on any public star chart, human shipyards worked in silence. Asteroids were hollowed into manufacturing worlds. Moons became fortress docks. Entire fleets vanished into classified military zones guarded by autonomous defense networks. No announcements were made. No threats were spoken. No warnings were issued. Humanity simply disappeared behind closed borders for nearly 80 years. The Empire laughed. "They're collapsing," imperial governors claimed. "Too divided to survive," senators agreed. Even imperial intelligence stopped monitoring Earth closely. Humans were no longer considered important enough to fear. That mistake would cost them everything. The event that changed galactic history began on a mining colony called Vera 9. It was a frozen world near the edge of Imperial territory. Valuable crystal deposits beneath the ice made the colony extremely profitable, but conditions were brutal. Workers disappeared regularly during storms. Supply shortages were constant. Most citizens there were humans, which meant the Empire barely cared what happened to them. Then the Dravik Syndicate arrived. The Dravoks were raiders from outside Imperial space, violent, ruthless, infamous for enslaving entire colonies before disappearing into deep space. Even Imperial patrols avoided direct confrontation with them whenever possible. When Dravik warships emerged above Vera 9, the colony governor immediately sent distress calls to nearby Imperial fleets. No one came. The closest Imperial admiral responded with a single transmission: "Local assets insufficient. Reinforcements unavailable. In simple terms, you are on your own." Panic spread across the colony. Orbital defenses were outdated. Security forces were tiny. Civilian evacuation ships could carry only a fraction of the population. People knew what the Dravoks would do once they landed. Entire families crowded emergency shelters beneath the ice. Workers armed themselves with mining lasers and industrial tools. Parents prepared children for the possibility they would never leave the bunkers alive. Then, another transmission arrived. Not from the Empire, from Earth. The message contained only 7 words. "Hold position. Humanity has received your signal." The colony commander stared at the transmission in confusion. Humanity had no nearby fleets. No registered military presence within dozens of sectors. No rapid response capability recognized by the Empire. Even the Dravoks intercepted the message and laughed openly across unsecured channels. One Dravik captain broadcast a mocking reply to the colony: "Tell your species to send prayers instead of ships." Hours passed. Then sensors detected something impossible. A gravitational distortion appeared beyond the outer edge of the system. At first, Imperial observers assumed it was a navigation error. The readings were unstable, enormous, unlike anything recorded before. Then space itself bent inward. Stars vanished behind a growing field of darkness. And something emerged. Not a fleet. One ship. Silence spread across every command station monitoring the system. The vessel was massive. Not merely large, unnaturally immense. Its surface was black metallic alloy lined with faint silver illumination stretching across kilometers of armored hull. Sections of the warship moved like shifting mechanical continents. Rotating structures surrounded its central body like giant rings forged for war itself. No Imperial design looked remotely similar. No known species possessed engineering on that scale. Even more terrifying, no engine signatures were visible. The ship had simply appeared. Dravik commanders immediately demanded identification. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then the unknown vessel transmitted a response across every channel in the system. A calm human voice spoke. "This is the United Earth Warship Eclipse. Pause. You were warned." And for the very first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire stopped laughing at humanity. The moment the transmission ended, silence consumed the Vera 9 system. No one moved. Not the Imperial observers watching from distant relay stations. Not the terrified colonists hiding beneath the frozen surface. Not even the Dravik raiders. Every sensor array in orbit focused entirely on the colossal black warship hanging in the darkness. The Eclipse. Even its name felt wrong. Imperial ships were designed to intimidate through size and weapon count. Dravik vessels relied on brutal armor and aggressive silhouettes meant to spread fear before battle even began. But the human ship inspired something different. Dread. Because the longer scanners observed it, the less sense it made. Its dimensions shifted depending on viewing angle. Energy readings contradicted each other every few seconds. Some sensors claimed the vessel was nearly 30 kilometers long. Others suggested it was far larger. One Imperial analyst aboard a nearby surveillance station whispered the same sentence 3 times before anyone realized he was speaking. That ship should not exist. The Dravaks recovered first. Their commander, Krulvar, was infamous across frontier space. He had destroyed military outposts twice the size of Vera 9 and once executed an entire colony governor live across public channels simply to force a faster surrender. Fear was a weapon to him, and he refused to let fear spread now. Unknown vessel. Krull transmitted, his reptilian voice echoing across open frequencies. You enter Dravik-controlled territory. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. No response came from the Eclipse. The giant ship remained perfectly motionless. Then one of the Dravik sensor officers reported something alarming. "Commander, it's locking onto us." Krull snarled. "How many weapons?" The officer hesitated. "All of them." A cold silence followed. Across the Dravik fleet, targeting alarms erupted simultaneously. Every human weapon system had activated in less than a second. Hundreds of lock warnings flooded their command displays. But Imperial observers noticed something even stranger. The Eclipse had not powered its weapons conventionally. No reactor spike. No visible charging sequence. No thermal increase. The systems simply became active instantly, as though the ship itself had already predicted the battle long before arriving. Krulvar refused to back down. "Attack formation," he ordered. 23 Dravik warships spread across the system in a wide assault arc. Heavy cruisers moved forward, while bomber carriers launched waves of strike craft into the darkness. To the colonists below, the sky lit up with engine trails. People inside the shelters prayed, because no matter how large the human vessel looked, one ship could not survive an entire fleet. At least that was what everyone believed. Inside the Eclipse, thousands of human crew members sat calmly at their stations. No panic, no shouting, no confusion. The bridge itself was enormous, dimly illuminated by holographic displays stretching across multiple command tiers. Officers monitored battle data with terrifying precision while artificial intelligence systems processed millions of calculations every second. At the center of the bridge stood Admiral Elias Ward, gray-haired, expression cold, hands clasped behind his back. He watched the approaching Dravik fleet without emotion. "Time to enemy firing range?" he asked quietly. 2 minutes, Admiral. Civilian casualties if engagement occurs near orbital sector? Projected 40%. Ward's eyes narrowed slightly. Unacceptable. He gave only one order. Move the battlefield. The bridge officer nodded. Then the Eclipse disappeared. Not jumped. Not accelerated. Disappeared. 1 second it floated above Vera 9. The next, it was behind the Dravik fleet. Imperial sensor stations instantly malfunctioned trying to track the maneuver. Analysts shouted over each other in panic as impossible readings flooded their systems. No hyperspace signature. No slipstream distortion. How did it move? That's physically impossible. Dravik ships spun desperately, trying to reacquire targets. Too late. The Eclipse fired. A single beam of pale white light erupted silently from beneath the warship's hull. One Dravik cruiser vanished instantly. Not exploded. Vanished. Its shields, armor, reactors, and internal structure disintegrated so completely that only expanding vapor remained where the ship had existed. Shock froze the battlefield. The human vessel fired again. Another cruiser disappeared. Then another. Panic spread through the Dravik formation. Scatter formation. Flank the target. Break their firing solution. But every maneuver failed before it even began. The Eclipse moved like a predator hunting animals trapped in slow motion. Human weapons struck with horrifying precision. Every shot lethal. Every attack calculated. Within minutes, burning wreckage drifted across the system. The Dravaks had lost 11 ships. The Eclipse remained untouched. Not a single visible shield fluctuation appeared across its hull. That was when the Imperial observers realized the terrifying truth. Humanity had hidden its military strength for decades, and the galaxy had never noticed. Back on Vera 9, colonists watched the battle from underground shelters through emergency broadcasts. Children stared in disbelief. Workers who had spent their lives being mocked for being human slowly began standing taller. Some cried openly. Others simply watched silently as the impossible unfolded above them. For the first time in generations, humanity was no longer the weakest species in the galaxy, and the battle had only just begun. Because deep inside the burning remains of the Dravik command ship, Commander Krulvar made one final decision. If he could not defeat the Eclipse, then he would destroy the colony instead. And as hidden planetary bombardment weapons turned toward the surface of Vera 9, Admiral Ward finally lost his patience. Inside the burning remains of the Dravik command ship, alarms screamed through collapsing corridors. Commander Krulvar stood over the tactical display, blood running down one side of his scaled face as the battlefield disintegrated around him. Half his fleet was gone. Gone. Not damaged. Not crippled. Erased. And the human warship still drifted through space without a scratch across its black metallic hull. Krull had fought Imperial battle groups before. He had survived ambushes, rebellions, even orbital sieges. Nothing had ever terrified him. Until now. Because the Eclipse was not fighting like a normal warship. It moved before attacks were launched. Countered maneuvers before commands finished transmitting. Destroyed targets with machine precision. It was as though the ship could see the future. One of his officers turned toward him in panic. "Commander, we must retreat." Krull slammed a clawed fist against the console. No! The Dravik species ruled through fear. Their reputation alone allowed them to conquer weaker systems. If word spread that a single human vessel destroyed an entire Dravik assault fleet, their empire of terror would collapse overnight. Krull refused to allow that. "If we cannot destroy the ship," he growled, "then we destroy the colony." The officer froze. "Sir, there are millions of civilians on the surface." Krull's cold eyes narrowed. "Exactly." He activated emergency override controls. Across the surviving Dravik ships, hidden bombardment cannons rotated downward toward Vera 9. Massive plasma weapons began charging. The frozen planet below had almost no remaining orbital defenses. One coordinated strike would ignite the atmosphere above the colony sectors and vaporize entire cities beneath the ice. In the underground shelters, emergency sirens erupted instantly. People panicked. Parents grabbed children. Workers rushed toward sealed bunker doors. Security officers screamed evacuation orders nobody could follow fast enough. On every emergency broadcast channel, the same message repeated over and over. Planetary strike imminent. Time to impact, 3 minutes. Inside the Imperial monitoring station, even veteran officers looked horrified. Can the human ship stop them? One analyst whispered. Nobody answered, because there were too many targets. Even for a monster like the Eclipse. Then the human warship transmitted again. The same calm voice echoed across the entire system. Dravik vessels. Power down your weapons immediately. Krull laughed bitterly. You think you can save them all? A short silence followed. Then the human replied, yes. Something about the answer unsettled everyone listening. Not arrogance. Not anger. Certainty. The bombardment countdown continued. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Inside the Eclipse, Admiral Elias Ward stood motionless while tactical projections filled the bridge around him. Dozens of red targeting markers covered the holographic image of Vera 9 orbit. Every Dravik weapon platform prepared to fire simultaneously. A younger officer spoke carefully. Admiral, interception probability is only 63%. Ward looked toward the frozen planet below. Millions of civilians. Workers abandoned by the Empire. Families the galaxy considered disposable. Human lives. And humanity did not abandon its own. Open channel, Ward ordered. The bridge officer complied immediately. Across every ship in the system, human communication frequencies activated. Then Ward spoke for the first time. His voice was low, controlled, dangerously calm. The Galactic Empire ignored this colony because its people were human. He paused. The Dravoks believed fear would protect them. Another pause. They were wrong. Ward's eyes hardened. Fire the Aegis network. For half a second, nothing happened. Then space around the Eclipse exploded with light. Thousands of small metallic objects launched outward from hidden sections of the warship's hull. They spread across orbit at impossible speed, forming enormous geometric patterns around Vera 9. Imperial officers stared in disbelief. Those aren't drones? No. They're satellites. How many did they launch? The answer appeared moments later. Over 12,000 autonomous defense platforms surrounded the planet. Every single one activated simultaneously. The Dravoks fired. Orbit lit up like a dying star. Massive plasma bombardments screamed toward the surface from every direction. Then the Aegis network engaged. Beams of blue-white light erupted across orbit with blinding intensity. Human interceptors struck incoming plasma rounds one after another in perfect synchronization. The sky above Vera 9 became an ocean of exploding fire. Shock waves rolled across the upper atmosphere. Frozen clouds evaporated instantly. The darkness of space itself flickered from the sheer scale of the energy exchange. But not a single Dravik shot reached the surface. Not one. Inside the shelters below, terrified civilians watched the explosions through emergency screens in stunned silence. Humanity had shielded the entire planet. Krull stared at the tactical display in horror. Impossible. No fleet deployed defensive systems at that scale. No species possessed response coordination that precise. No military could calculate millions of interception trajectories in real time. Unless the realization hit him like ice through his spine. The Eclipse was not operating alone. It was connected to something larger. Far larger. Before Krull could speak, another alarm erupted across his bridge. Commander, new contacts detected. His blood froze. More gravitational distortions appeared at the edge of the system. 1, then 3, then 10. Space itself bent inward again. Imperial observers watched in terror as enormous shadows emerged from the darkness beyond reality. Additional human warships, each one colossal, each one carrying the same black metallic armor. The first eclipse had not come as humanity's full response. It had come alone because humanity believed one ship would be enough. And now the galaxy was beginning to understand the true scale of its mistake. The Vera 9 system fell completely silent. Even the surviving Dravik ships stopped firing. Across orbit, burning debris drifted between frozen moons, while the massive human warships continued emerging from distorted space one after another. Imperial observers could barely process what they were seeing. The first vessel, the Eclipse, had already shattered everything the galaxy believed about human technology. But these new arrivals, they were even larger. One resembled a moving fortress wrapped in rotating armor rings thicker than entire Imperial cruisers. Another carried enormous structures along its spine that glowed like captive stars beneath black metallic plating. A third warship unfolded mechanical sections outward like wings stretching across kilometers of vacuum. Each ship radiated terrifying power. And there were more coming. Contact count rising. 21 confirmed vessels. No, 24. By the core. Inside the Imperial relay station, officers stared at their displays in horror. Humanity had hidden an entire fleet. Not a defensive force. Not a regional navy. A war fleet capable of challenging the Empire itself. On the Dravik command ship, panic finally broke discipline. We need to retreat now. They're surrounding us. Hyperspace lanes are being blocked. Commander Krulvar roared at his crew to stay focused, but fear had already infected the bridge. Because every surviving Dravik officer understood the same thing. They were no longer facing prey. They were trapped before predators. Then a new transmission arrived from the human fleet. Different voice. Female this time. Cold. Precise. This is Earth Defense Fleet Command. A holographic symbol appeared across communication screens throughout the system, the emblem of humanity. Not the old trade insignia known by the Empire. This was something new. A silver Earth surrounded by black stars and crossed by a single sword. The voice continued. You initiated hostile action against a protected human colony. Pause. You ignored evacuation opportunities. Another pause. You targeted civilians. The woman's tone never changed. Judgment is now in effect. Every surviving Dravik captain immediately attempted emergency escape jumps. None succeeded. Shock spread across their bridges as navigation systems failed simultaneously. One officer screamed in confusion. Something is inside our computers. Human electronic warfare systems had infiltrated the entire Dravik fleet. Engines shut down. Weapons deactivated. Targeting systems turned against friendly ships. Chaos exploded everywhere. Several Dravik cruisers accidentally opened fire on each other after losing navigation control. One destroyer slammed into another vessel while attempting evasive maneuvers. The human fleet had dismantled them without firing a shot. Inside the Eclipse, Admiral Ward watched the battlefield calmly. Status. Tactical superiority achieved. An officer replied instantly. Enemy fleet combat capability reduced to 19%. Civilian casualties? 0. Only then did Ward sit down. The bridge crew exchanged quiet glances. Anyone who knew the Admiral understood what that meant. The battle was over. But for the Dravaks, the nightmare was just beginning. Back on Vera 9, civilians emerged cautiously from underground shelters. For the first time in hours, people could breathe again. Children stared upward through massive reinforced observation domes at the impossible sight above them. Dozens of giant human warships now guarded the planet. The sky itself belonged to humanity. A little girl standing beside her mother whispered softly, "Those are ours." Her mother couldn't answer, because even humans themselves had never seen ships like these before. Earth had hidden its true military so completely that most of its own colonies knew almost nothing about it. Which raised a terrifying question spreading rapidly across Imperial channels. If this was only the fleet protecting outer colonies, what was guarding Earth itself? The answer began arriving only minutes later. Long-range observers near the core worlds started detecting unusual activity across human space. Massive energy signatures, fleet mobilizations, weapons platforms activating around classified systems. Then Imperial intelligence intercepted something they were never meant to hear. human military transmissions. Encrypted communications flooded hidden networks across the galaxy as Earth Defense Command moved to full alert status. And every intercepted message carried the same phrase repeatedly. Phase 1 authorized. Inside the Imperial Senate on the core world of Thaler Prime, emergency sessions erupted instantly. Panicked senators shouted across the chamber while military advisors projected battlefield footage from Vera 9 above the assembly floor. Entire sections of the Senate fell silent as they watched Dravik warships vanish beneath human firepower. One elderly senator whispered in disbelief, "We thought they were weak." An Imperial admiral answered quietly, "No." His expression darkened. They were hiding. That realization hit harder than any weapon. For centuries, the Empire had treated humanity like a minor species, ignored them, insulted them, excluded them from major military positions. And humanity never protested, because while the Empire wasted centuries celebrating its dominance, Earth had been preparing for war. The Senate chamber descended into fear. Some demanded immediate negotiations with humanity. Others called for mobilization before humans attacked first. Then the chamber doors opened. Grand Admiral Kashin Rydek entered silently. Commander of the Imperial Armada. Hero of 17 campaigns. The most feared military leader in Imperial history. And for the first time in decades, he looked genuinely concerned. Rydek stared at the holographic image of the eclipse floating above Vera 9. Then he spoke 6 words that chilled the entire Senate. "We have underestimated them completely." But before anyone could respond, a military officer rushed into the chamber carrying fresh transmission data. "Admiral, we just received a direct message from Earth." The room went silent. "Play it," Rydek ordered. The hologram shifted. A human figure appeared on screen wearing a dark military uniform marked with silver insignia. The woman looked directly into the Senate chamber and spoke calmly. "The age of human silence is over." News of Vera 9 spread across the galaxy faster than any government could contain it. By the next cycle, every major communication network carried the same images. The black human warship emerging from distorted space. Dravik cruisers vanishing in white light. Entire fleets surrendering before humanity's hidden armada. For ordinary citizens across Imperial space, the reaction was shock. For military commanders, it was fear. Because the Empire's greatest advantage had always been certainty. Everyone believed the Imperial Armada was unbeatable. Now that certainty was cracking apart. Inside the core world shipyards of Thaler Prime, emergency mobilization orders echoed through orbital docks. Thousands of workers rushed across giant construction platforms while warships powered up for immediate deployment. Battle groups assembled one after another. Heavy carriers, Titan cruisers, planetary siege platforms. The Empire was preparing for war. But beneath the organized activity lurked something unfamiliar inside the Armada. Doubt. Imperial crews watched footage from Vera 9 repeatedly before deployment. Every officer had seen the eclipse move in impossible ways. Every pilot knew Dravik weapons had failed completely. Nobody wanted to be the first fleet sent against humanity. At the center of the military mobilization stood Grand Admiral Kashin Rydek. From the command deck of the Imperial flagship Dominion, he observed thousands of vessels preparing outside Thaler Prime. The Dominion itself was considered one of the greatest warships ever constructed. 8 kilometers long, layered in fortress-grade armor, capable of leveling continents from orbit. For years, Rydek believed nothing in the galaxy could rival it. Now he wasn't sure. An intelligence officer approached carefully. "Admiral, updated estimates on human strength." Rydek accepted the data tablet silently. His expression darkened further as he read. "Impossible, sir. These numbers can't be correct." But they were. Humanity possessed military production levels far beyond Imperial predictions. Hidden shipyards had been discovered across dozens of sectors. Autonomous manufacturing stations operated inside regions previously believed empty. And worst of all, human technological advancement appeared decades ahead of the Empire. Some reports even suggested centuries. Rydek slowly looked out across the massive Imperial fleet beyond the viewport. For the first time in his career, he questioned whether the Empire could actually lose a war. Meanwhile, across the outer sectors, humanity continued moving. Entire fleets emerged from hidden space. Unlike the Empire, human ships traveled in eerie silence. Their formations were perfectly synchronized. No unnecessary broadcasts, no ceremonial displays, only purpose. Independent systems began reacting immediately. Several frontier colonies requested military alliances with Earth within hours of the Vera 9 battle becoming public. Merchant guilds rerouted trade away from Imperial territory toward protected human corridors. Even species once loyal to the Empire started asking dangerous questions. If humans could defend colonies the Empire abandoned, then who truly deserved galactic loyalty? Inside Imperial Intelligence headquarters, panic spread rapidly. This is turning political. We're losing border support. Human influence is spreading too fast. But another revelation soon made things worse. Recovered Dravik data logs revealed intercepted human transmissions dating back nearly 40 years. Human operatives had secretly evacuated threatened colonies long before official conflicts occurred. Disappearing refugee ships, vanished pirate fleets, unexplained rescue operations in unstable systems. The pattern became horrifyingly clear. Humanity had quietly protected frontier populations for decades while the Empire ignored them. They had built trust slowly, silently. Now that trust was becoming power. Back at Vera 9, civilians watched the enormous human fleet continue operations above the frozen world. Relief ships arrived carrying food, medical supplies, and reconstruction equipment. Human engineers restored damaged orbital infrastructure within hours. To the colonists, it felt unreal. The Empire had neglected the colony for years. Humanity arrived for a single distress call and transformed everything overnight. A local worker named Terran stood beside an observation window watching the eclipse drift silently in orbit. His young son stared upward in awe. "Dad." Terran swallowed slowly. "Yeah. Are humans the strongest species now?" The man didn't know how to answer, because strength wasn't what frightened him most. It was discipline. The human fleet showed no arrogance, no celebration, no cruelty toward prisoners. They acted with terrifying control, as if every operation had already been planned years in advance. Inside the eclipse, Admiral Ward reviewed new intelligence reports from Earth Command. More Imperial fleets were mobilizing near the core worlds. Border defenses strengthening. Long-range weapons activating. Recon drones disappearing near classified sectors. The Empire was preparing for confrontation. A bridge officer spoke carefully. "Sir, do you believe they'll attack?" Ward remained silent for several seconds. Then he answered, "Yes." The officer hesitated. "Then why haven't we struck first?" Ward looked toward the stars. "Because this isn't the war we prepared for." Before the officer could ask what he meant, the bridge lights dimmed slightly. An incoming transmission appeared. "Priority Omega, Earth High Command." Every officer on the bridge straightened instantly. The screen activated. A single figure appeared seated inside a dark command chamber beneath Earth. Supreme Commander Helena Graves, leader of Earth Defense Command. One of the most secretive individuals in human history. Her eyes moved calmly across the bridge crew, then toward Admiral Ward. "The Empire has crossed phase threshold," she said quietly. Ward nodded once. "Understood." Several officers exchanged uneasy looks. "Phase threshold? What did that mean?" Graves continued. "Deploy Protocol Blackstar." Silence hit the bridge instantly. One officer visibly paled. Another looked down at his console without speaking. Admiral Ward's expression hardened slightly. "Confirmation required," he said carefully. Graves answered immediately. "Confirmed." Then she added 6 words that changed everything. "Humanity no longer hides from anyone." The moment Supreme Commander Helena Graves ended the transmission, silence gripped the bridge of the eclipse. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even veteran officers who had faced combat across the frontier looked uneasy now, because every person on that bridge understood the meaning of Protocol Blackstar. And if Earth Command had authorized it, then the galaxy was far closer to war than anyone realized. Admiral Elias Ward stood motionless for several seconds before finally speaking. Transmit authorization codes to all fleets. Yes, Admiral. Unlock Blackstar assets. A pause. Across every sector. The bridge officer hesitated only briefly before obeying. Confirmed. Throughout the human fleet surrounding Vera 9, encrypted signals spread instantly from ship to ship at quantum speed. Then the changes began. Sections of the Eclipse shifted mechanically with deep metallic vibrations echoing across its colossal structure. Hidden armor plates folded outward. Massive internal systems awakened beneath the hull. The energy readings became terrifying. Imperial spy satellites observing the fleet immediately transmitted emergency reports back to the core worlds. Human vessels increasing power output. Unknown systems activating. We're detecting weapons signatures far beyond previous scans. Inside the Imperial flagship Dominion, Grand Admiral Rydek watched the incoming data with growing concern. How many systems activated? Still counting, sir. Estimate. The officer swallowed nervously. All of them. Rydek's jaw tightened. That was impossible. No fleet activated full combat systems outside active war zones. The energy requirements alone would cripple logistics chains. Unless human technology had solved limitations the Empire still struggled with. Another officer rushed forward. Admiral, long-range probes detected movement near the Helios Rift. Rydek turned sharply. What kind of movement? The answer chilled the command deck. Human structures, sir. Huge ones. A holographic image appeared above the bridge. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. Then realization spread slowly. Shipyards. Entire hidden fleets had been concealed inside the Helios Rift. A region of unstable gravity storms the Empire considered unnavigable for centuries. But humanity had turned the rift into a fortress. Massive manufacturing stations floated between shattered moons. Defense platforms lined asteroid fields. Hundreds of black warships waited silently inside the darkness. And that was only one hidden sector. More reports flooded in moments later. Additional human fleets detected near the Perseus Veil. Military infrastructure confirmed inside abandoned mining zones. Unknown stations emerging across outer sectors. The scale of the deception became overwhelming. Humanity had not merely hidden a military. Humanity had hidden an empire. Back on Thaler Prime, panic spread through the Imperial Senate once again. Some senators demanded immediate peace negotiations. Others screamed for total war before humans grew stronger. One terrified official shouted the question everyone feared asking. How long have they been preparing? No one knew. That uncertainty became its own weapon. Meanwhile, across independent systems beyond Imperial territory, public opinion shifted rapidly toward Earth. Frontier colonies celebrated openly after footage spread showing humans protecting civilians on Vera 9. Merchant unions pledged support to human-controlled trade lanes. Several neutral worlds requested defense treaties with Earth within hours. The Empire's authority was weakening faster than anyone predicted. And humanity still hadn't officially declared war. Inside a detention chamber aboard the Eclipse, Commander Krulvar watched human crews move through the corridors beyond his containment field. No shouting, no brutality, no arrogance. That disturbed him deeply. Dravox ruled through visible fear. The Empire ruled through overwhelming force. But humans ruled through control. Krull finally looked toward the guard standing outside the cell. A human marine wearing black combat armor. You think your species has one? Krull sneered. The marine didn't react. Krull stepped closer. The Empire will crush you eventually. Every empire falls. The human soldier answered calmly. We know. Krull frowned. Then why fight? The marine's expression never changed. Because some things are worth protecting. For some reason, those words unsettled Krull more than threats ever could. Elsewhere aboard the Eclipse, Admiral Ward entered a secured command chamber deep within the ship. Only senior officers possessed clearance to enter. Inside, a massive holographic star map filled the room. Human fleet positions glowed across hundreds of systems. Ward studied them silently. Then another figure appeared beside the map through holographic projection. Supreme Commander Graves again. Imperial mobilization status? She asked. Accelerating, Ward replied. Rydek is preparing frontline battle groups near the core approach sectors. Graves nodded once. As expected. Ward crossed his arms. Do we know their objective? Yes. Her answer came immediately. They're preparing a demonstration strike. Ward's eyes narrowed. Where? Graves enlarged a region of space near the outer colonies. One world flashed red. Kara Prime, a heavily populated industrial planet. Mostly human. Ward's voice hardened instantly. They're targeting civilians. No, Graves corrected quietly. They're targeting morale. The room fell silent. Because the Empire understood something dangerous now. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology. It was unity. The Empire intended to break that unity through fear before Earth could fully emerge onto the galactic stage. Graves looked directly at Ward. We cannot allow another Vera 9. Ward nodded slowly. What are your orders? The Supreme Commander answered without hesitation. Move the fleet. Her eyes became colder. And this time, the holographic stars around them shifted as massive human fleets began changing formation across the galaxy. Let the Empire see all of us. Kara Prime was one of the largest industrial worlds in the outer sectors. From orbit, the planet glowed with endless networks of city lights stretching across entire continents. Massive shipyards floated above the atmosphere while cargo lanes crowded nearby space every hour of every day. For decades, Kara Prime supplied resources to the Galactic Empire. But most of its population was human, which made the world expendable in the eyes of certain imperial leaders. Grand Admiral Cassian Rydek understood exactly why the Senate selected Kara Prime as the target for a demonstration strike. The Empire needed control, needed fear, needed the galaxy to remember who ruled the stars. And if one human colony had to burn for that lesson, many senators considered it acceptable. But Rydek was no fool. Standing aboard the Dominion, he studied tactical projections carefully while the Imperial Armada gathered around him. Thousands of warships now filled the surrounding sectors. It was one of the largest fleet mobilizations in Imperial history. Yet something felt wrong. Too many unknowns. Too little information about human capabilities. An officer approached cautiously. Admiral, advanced battle groups are in position. Rydek nodded once. Any movement from Earth? The officer hesitated. That's the problem, sir. Rydek looked up sharply. What problem? We can't track them. Silence spread across the bridge. Human fleets kept disappearing from surveillance. Entire formations vanished between scans despite Imperial monitoring networks operating at maximum range. It was as though humanity moved through space using pathways nobody else could detect. Another officer interrupted urgently. Admiral, gravitational spikes detected near Kara Prime. Every eye turned toward the tactical display. Then the stars themselves began disappearing, one by one. Across the darkness surrounding Kara Prime, enormous shadows emerged silently from distorted space. Human warships, hundreds of them. Gasps echoed across the Dominion's bridge. Even Rydek stared in disbelief. The fleet surrounding Vera 9 had seemed enormous before. This was something else entirely. Titan-class vessels stretched across orbit like moving cities. Carrier formations deployed automated drone wings by the thousands. Massive defense platforms unfolded around Kara Prime with machine precision. Within minutes, human ships completely surrounded the planet. The stars vanished behind black metallic hulls. One Imperial officer whispered the words nobody wanted to say aloud. That's not a fleet. He swallowed hard. That's an invasion force. Across the galaxy, civilian networks exploded with panic as images of the human armada spread everywhere. Never in recorded history had a single species mobilized military power on this scale without formally declaring war. Independent systems immediately closed borders. Trade routes shut down. Governments activated emergency defense protocols. Fear spread faster than light itself. Because now the galaxy understood something horrifying. Humanity had enough warships to challenge the Empire directly, and they had likely possessed that strength for years. On Kara Prime below, millions of civilians looked upward in stunned silence as the sky disappeared beneath enormous human vessels. Children pointed toward orbit. Workers abandoned factories. Crowds gathered in city streets watching defense satellites activate overhead. For many humans on Kara Prime, it was the first time in their lives they felt truly protected. The Empire ruled their world, but humanity had come for them. Inside the Eclipse, Admiral Ward monitored the fleet deployment calmly. Orbital shield coverage? 98% and rising. Civilian evacuation readiness? Complete. Imperial response? The tactical officer hesitated. They're approaching. A holographic display zoomed outward. Imperial battle groups were entering nearby systems rapidly. Thousands of ships. Enough firepower to ignite entire planets. Tension spread across the bridge. This was no pirate fleet. No frontier raid. If battle started here, it could become the first true war between humanity and the Empire. Then alarms suddenly erupted across the Eclipse. Unknown signal detected. Origin. Imperial command frequency. The main screen activated instantly. Grand Admiral Cassian Rydek appeared. The old commander looked exhausted. Older than before. But his voice remained steady. Admiral Ward. Ward nodded slightly. Grand Admiral. Several officers exchanged surprised looks. Neither man sounded hateful, just tired. Rydek spoke first. You've made your point. Ward's expression remained unreadable. Have we? The Imperial Admiral exhaled slowly. The Senate believes humanity intends conquest. And what do you believe? Ward asked. A long silence followed. Finally, Rydek answered honestly. I believe humanity prepared for something long before this crisis began. Ward said nothing. Rydek continued. You built fleets in secret, fortified hidden systems, created weapons beyond anything we expected. His eyes narrowed slightly. You were preparing for war. At last, Ward responded. Yes. The single word echoed heavily across both bridges. Rydek stared at him carefully. With us. Ward looked toward the holographic star map surrounding the bridge, then answered quietly. No. Before Rydek could speak again, another officer shouted from the Dominion's tactical station. Admiral. Fear filled the officer's voice. Multiple unknown contacts entering the galaxy. The tactical display changed instantly. At the outer edge of galactic space, enormous red warning markers appeared across dozens of sectors simultaneously. Unknown fleets. Thousands of vessels. No identification codes. No known species signatures. And they were heading inward. Fast. Across both human and Imperial command decks, silence fell. Because every military officer present understood the terrifying implication. Humanity hadn't been hiding from the Empire. Humanity had been preparing for something far worse. And whatever was coming had finally arrived. The tactical displays aboard both the Dominion and the Eclipse turned crimson. Warning markers multiplied across the galactic rim faster than systems could process them. Entire sectors vanished behind expanding fields of interference while long-range probes went dark one after another. Unknown fleets were entering the galaxy, and they were enormous. Imperial officers stared in stunned silence as incoming data flooded their consoles. No hyperspace signatures detected. Their movement doesn't match known physics. Contact numbers still increasing. One analyst aboard the Dominion whispered shakily. There are too many. Grand Admiral Cassian Rydek stepped toward the holographic projection, his expression colder than ever. How many fleets? The tactical officer swallowed hard. Estimated, over 4,000 capital-class vessels. Silence. Even Rydek felt his chest tighten. No empire in galactic history had ever assembled military power on that scale. Not even the Galactic Empire. Across from him, Admiral Elias Ward watched the same data aboard the Eclipse. Unlike the Imperials, the human officers showed no surprise. Only focus. Rydek noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed. "You knew," he said quietly over the open command channel. Ward met his gaze. "Yes." The answer sent a chill across the Dominion's bridge. Rydek's voice hardened. "What are they?" For the first time since this crisis began, Admiral Ward hesitated. Then he answered. "The Harbingers." The name alone felt heavy. Ward continued calmly. 23 years ago, a human deep-range exploration vessel crossed beyond the galactic boundary searching for stable dark matter corridors. The holographic display shifted as archived footage appeared between the two flagships. Broken stars, burning ships, unknown black structures drifting through space. "The expedition found ruins," Ward said quietly. "Entire civilizations destroyed outside the galaxy." Imperial officers listened in complete silence. Ward's voice became darker. "They also found evidence of the species responsible." Rydek stared at the horrifying footage. Dead fleets, planetary debris fields, artificial moons split apart like broken stone. Every destroyed civilization showed the same pattern. Total extinction. "They consume advanced civilizations," Ward explained. "Not for territory. Not resources." Another image appeared. A galaxy completely dark. "They erased them." Silence consumed both command bridges. The realization hit Rydek slowly. Humanity hadn't hidden its military because of the Empire. Humanity had hidden it because they knew something was coming. Ward continued. "The Harbingers destroyed 3 satellite galaxies before moving toward ours." Rydek's blood ran cold. "How long?" "Based on their velocity, humanity estimated first contact within 30 years. And instead of warning us," Rydek snapped, "you stayed silent?" Ward's expression hardened slightly. "We tried." Another archive appeared. Old diplomatic records, rejected warnings, dismissed intelligence reports, Imperial officials laughing during ancient Senate hearings, human threat assessments ignored for decades. The Empire believed humanity was paranoid. Weak species imagining enemies beyond known space. Rydek slowly closed his eyes. They had mocked the only civilization preparing for the real war. Suddenly another alarm erupted aboard the Dominion. Harbinger fleet accelerating. The tactical map updated instantly. Enemy formations moved with terrifying coordination toward the outer colonies. Entire frontier systems now stood directly in their path, including defenseless Imperial worlds. Panic spread immediately across Imperial channels. Civilian evacuations began. Border fleets retreated inward. Emergency communications overloaded across dozens of sectors. And still the unknown fleets advanced. Then the first frontier system went dark. No battle, no distress call, just silence. One moment the colony existed. The next, nothing remained. An Imperial officer stared at the disappearing signal in horror. They annihilated the entire system. More warning lights erupted. Additional colonies vanished seconds later. The Harbingers weren't invading slowly. They were cutting through the galaxy like a storm. Inside the Eclipse, Admiral Ward issued orders instantly. All fleets initiate defensive convergence. Human warships across multiple sectors began moving simultaneously with perfect synchronization. Massive formations turned toward the incoming enemy. For the first time since Vera 9, the human fleet looked truly serious. Rydek watched the tactical display carefully. "Your numbers still aren't enough," he admitted quietly. Ward nodded once. "I know." The Imperial Admiral looked toward the approaching enemy markers, then back toward the human commander. For decades, the Empire considered humanity insignificant. Now the survival of the galaxy depended on them. Rydek made his decision. He opened a system-wide Imperial command frequency. Every fleet, every station, every military commander across Imperial space received the transmission. This is Grand Admiral Kashin Rydek. His voice echoed across the galaxy. All Imperial forces are ordered to cease hostility toward human fleets immediately. Shock spread through command networks. Rydek continued firmly. Humanity's warnings were correct. The tactical display behind him showed burning frontier systems disappearing one after another. A greater enemy has entered our galaxy. He paused. And from this moment forward, Rydek looked directly toward Admiral Ward's image. The Galactic Empire stands beside Earth. For several seconds, silence followed. Then humanity responded. Across thousands of black warships, encrypted signals activated simultaneously. Formation patterns shifted. Weapons armed. Defense grids synchronized with Imperial systems. Two former rivals now faced the darkness together. But deep beyond the galactic rim, the Harbinger fleets continued advancing. And at the center of the enemy formation, something enormous began to awaken. Something so massive that even human threat predictions had underestimated it. Inside the eclipse, a tactical officer turned pale while staring at new scans. "Admiral," Ward looked up sharply. The officer's voice trembled. "There's another ship behind them." The main screen zoomed outward. Then every person on the bridge froze. Because behind the Harbinger fleets, a structure the size of a moon emerged from the darkness between galaxies. The galaxy had never seen fear like this before. Not during the ancient machine rebellions. Not during the collapse wars. Not even during the rise of the Galactic Empire itself. Because nothing in recorded history compared to what now appeared beyond the galactic rim. The massive object emerging behind the Harbinger fleets was not merely a ship. It was a moving world. Its surface stretched across thousands of kilometers, covered in dark metallic structures that pulsed like living machinery. Giant rings rotated around its body while crimson energy storms crawled beneath layers of black armor thicker than cities. Entire Harbinger fleets moved around it like escort drones. Even from impossible distances, the object dominated every tactical display across the galaxy. Imperial officers aboard the Dominion stared in silence. One finally whispered, "How do we fight something like that?" Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Across frontier systems, panic erupted completely. Civilian transports flooded hyperspace lanes trying to flee inward. Planetary governments declared martial law. Religious groups proclaimed the end of civilization itself. And through it all, the Harbingers kept advancing. System after system vanished. No negotiations. No warnings. No demands. Only annihilation. Inside the eclipse, Admiral Elias Ward stood before the massive tactical projection while thousands of human and Imperial ships repositioned across defensive lines. For the first time since the conflict began, even human officers looked tense. Because the final enemy humanity spent decades preparing for had finally arrived. And it was worse than expected. A young Imperial liaison officer looked toward Ward carefully. "You knew they existed?" Ward nodded once. "Yes. Then why didn't humanity leave the galaxy?" The Admiral's answer came quietly. "Because this is our home." The words spread across the bridge in silence. Not arrogance. Not defiance. Just truth. Humanity stayed because they refused to surrender their galaxy without a fight. Suddenly, another transmission appeared from Earth Command. Supreme Commander Helena Graves materialized above the bridge hologram once more. But this time, she looked grim. "Admiral," she said calmly, "the Harbinger Prime vessel has entered attack range." The moon-sized structure began glowing across multiple sections of its surface. Energy readings exploded beyond measurable limits. Imperial sensors failed attempting to process them. Then entire stars near the galactic rim started dimming. The Prime vessel was draining their energy, using suns as fuel. Panic spread instantly across command networks. "If that weapon fires, it could destroy entire sectors. We can't stop something that size." Graves remained calm. "Actually," she said quietly, "we can." Every eye on the bridge turned toward her. Then the holographic map shifted. A hidden region near Earth illuminated red. Dozens of enormous objects appeared beneath layers of classified security encryption. Even Admiral Rydek stared in disbelief. "What are those?" Graves answered, "Ark-class warships." Silence. Humanity had hidden something even larger than the Eclipse fleet. The hologram zoomed closer. Gigantic vessels slept within fortified docks surrounding Earth itself. They dwarfed every known ship in the galaxy, including the Harbinger escorts. Each Ark-class vessel carried continent-sized weapon systems along its hull. Rydek whispered slowly, "You built these in secret?" Graves looked directly at him. "We built them because nobody else would." Then she gave the order humanity had prepared decades to hear. "Activate the arcs." Across hidden shipyards near Earth, ancient systems awakened. Massive reactors ignited beneath kilometers of armor plating. Docking structures separated. Entire oceans around classified naval fortresses trembled. And slowly, the largest human warships ever created began moving. Across the galaxy, every communication network broadcast the same unbelievable images. The Ark fleet emerging from Earth. Millions watched in stunned silence. Human workers, imperial citizens, refugees fleeing frontier worlds. For centuries, humanity had been mocked, ignored, dismissed. Now they stood between the galaxy and extinction. Inside the Dominion, Grand Admiral Rydek watched the Ark fleet join formation beside Imperial forces. Then he turned toward Admiral Ward one final time. "I judged your species incorrectly." Ward looked toward the advancing darkness beyond the rim. "You weren't the only ones." Then the Harbinger Prime vessel fired. A beam of crimson light erupted across space, consuming entire defense lines instantly. Hundreds of Imperial ships vanished in seconds. The war had begun, but humanity moved immediately. The Eclipse accelerated forward alongside the Ark fleet while thousands of human and Imperial vessels charged behind them together. Former enemies, now allies. As alarms screamed across every bridge in the combined fleet, Admiral Ward gave humanity's final command. "Transmit to all forces." The channel opened galaxy-wide. Every soldier, every civilian, every ship, human and Imperial alike. Ward's voice echoed across the stars. "Today we hold the line." Then the united fleets of humanity and the Galactic Empire surged into the darkness together. And the galaxy shook with war.